Hey everybody, this is Steve Miller, better known as Kelly's dad and marketing gunslinger. Thanks for coming back to listen to me ramble on about my uncopyable ideas and stuff like that. You know, last week I talked about the kind of the difficult situation that Whole Foods has found themselves in. You know, now here's a company that but they did kickstart the organic movement across the United States and I guess around the world, I would imagine. And because many years ago they came out and they were organic and they said, our objective is going to be that we want to get, make organic mainstream. That's what we want to do. And they built these beautiful stores. The headquarters is based in Austin, Texas, and I've been to that store. I've been to many other stores. They have these beautiful stores all over the place. Very nice. Lots of great food, not just shopping, but also to sit down and eat. And you know what? They accomplished their goal. Organic is now mainstream. And as I was pointing out last week on the show, that now they're in trouble. They're really in trouble. It was just less than 2 years ago they were talking about big, massive expansion, and now they're closing stores. Their stock prices going straight down. And so the question is Whole Foods going to survive? And, have they actually maybe cut their own throats by encouraging this organic movement across the board? Because now they've got lots and lots of competition. Now, what happened? What happened there? And I think it's pretty simple. I've pointed this out in a lot of, that in business today, technology enables companies to copy things quickly, so that those things that were deliverables before, whether it was your product or your service, are now much easier to copy by the competition. But the big mistake that I think Whole Foods made, and I don't think I'm the only one who thinks this, is that they established themselves as this leader of organic. But then they didn't do anything to become a leader in something else, okay? They kind of just said, okay, we're just going to keep getting better at this. But the problem with this was that they had direct competitors, new competitors come in and say that they, hey, we're going to start building our own stores, our own organic stores. And they've come in and they've succeeded very, very well. But then you also have the big majors, the big, the Godzillas out there, the Krogers and Walmarts and even Costco and others, who said, well, heck, if people are going to buy organic, we're going to sell them organic. And so as a result, Whole Foods is not unique anymore. They're not delivering anything unique anymore. Now, mistake number one was not recognizing that they were copyable and that eventually somebody would copy them. And that's exactly what's happened. Mistake number two was that they didn't look ahead to the future and say, okay, yes, this is going to be something that is copyable. And if we are successful, well, other people are going to copy us, and so we better go out and do something new. No, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. I mean, certainly the stores, like I said, I think the stores are beautiful, and I think that I enjoy going over there and shopping, but it's no longer unique. There are a lot of really great grocery stores around the U.S., around the world. So in the beginning, they were difficult to copy. In fact, in the beginning, they had that uncopyable status, but that quickly went away. Who wants to compete with Costco? Right? That's tough. But when you got a Whole Foods that's going to compete with Costco or a Walmart or a Kroger. So what has their response been? See, since they've run into this bad situation, what has their response been? And unfortunately, in my opinion, it's been the exact wrong response. The response has been to now become they're trying to get their prices down more. They're discounting their prices. They're lowering their prices, so that they are now competing with, they're now saying, hey, we're going to get pretty close to matching the prices of what the competition is doing out there. And in fact, they're even starting, I think they're starting some new stores called 365 by Whole Foods that are aimed at value conscious shoppers. And doggone it, I just think they're making a huge mistake. Now, since I did that program last week, I've had a couple of people commented right here, right on my blog, that they would like to know, well, what advice would I give Whole Foods? Okay, and I've had a number of people email me about that same question, and that's a great question. What would I advise Whole Foods right now? Well, here's what I would say to Whole Foods. Okay, I'll give you a couple of things, but let's start it with this. Let's start it with, what would I tell them right now? Well, first of all, is to understand that organic is the product. When we talk about, there are basically three things that corporations have typically. This is what I talk about in my book, Uncopyable, which, by the way, it's out. It started getting delivered last Friday. Friday was the first day, and doggone it, within like 2 or 3 days, Amazon sold out. That's awesome. Boy, I want to thank all of you that did buy that. I really, really appreciate it. If you haven't bought the book, please go buy it. You know what? You make my smoking hot wife very, very happy. So anyway, so like I talk about in there, for many, many years, corporations have looked at the competitive landscape as being basically three different parts. There's the product, the deliverable that you're giving to people. There's the customer service behind the product, and then there's the price of the product. And for many, many years, you could compete. You could have a superior product. Right? And, maybe even good customer service. And if you had a superior product, good customer service, well, then your prices didn't have to be low. And Whole Foods is a perfect example of that. There are others that rely on that their product might not be the world's best, but they have really, really great customer service, or they have low prices. For their products. So it's sort of like there's a balance. There's this little dance between those three items. But none of us, I don't think that any of us that are watching me right now, any of you that are watching me right now, including me, so I say us, we don't want to compete on price. Price is a losing battle, because if you compete on price, if you win on price initially, you will lose on price eventually. That's kind of the way I look at it, and so we don't want to do that. So we start with that. We start thinking, that organic is the product, and their stores were the product, but the product was copyable. It was ultimately copyable, and it was copied. Now, here's the question that I would ask all of you to think about. If a bear and an alligator got into a fight, who's going to win? Now, if you want to pause and think about that, please do, because I'm going to give you the answer here in just a second. So 3, 2, 1, here comes the answer. Well, the answer is that if a bear and alligator get into a fight, the winner is most likely going to be determined by where the fight is. In other words, if it's in the water, the alligator's going to kick the bear's butt. If it's on land, the bear is going to smack down the alligator. So in other words, the rules of competition are determined by where, the rules of competition are going to determine what's going on in your world. Now, what's happened here is that Whole Foods initially was not price. They did not compete on price, but now they're saying that they're going to compete on price. So what are they doing? Well, they're like the alligator who is now going out on land to fight the bears, who are Kroger, Walmart, Costco, the other ones that are like that. They are the bears, and Whole Foods has been the alligator. So Whole Foods is now going out and is now saying they're going to compete on by the rules that are put in place by these others. Well, they're already established there. They've already set the rules. So now that puts Whole Foods in a very, very bad situation, a very, very weakened situation, because for them, price should not be a differentiator. Okay, so that's number one, is to think about is where the fight is. It makes a big difference, and they really are making a mistake going out there and taking the fight to these guys on their turf. Number two is, you could think in terms of the customer service part of those three things: product, service, and price. And you could ask yourself, what could you do to ramp up, or what could you do to create a customer attachment which is kind of the main theme of what I talk about in Uncopyable, is that the best way for you to succeed long term is to create an attachment where your customers are so attached to you, not loyal, they are attached. See, I'm tired of this whole thing about we want to have loyal customers. Satisfied customers, number one, they leave all the time. All right, I talked about that in a past program, but you don't want them to be loyal. You want them to be attached to you. So, for example, good attachments in companies. Harley-Davidson, their customers are attached to them because they love everything about the Harley-Davidson culture. That there's a community that they participate in. That they all do things together. So while the bike is really, really important to them, it's less important than the community. So that's an attachment to the people. Lexus owners, and I don't know if this is still true or not, but I know that a few years ago, Lexus, if you owned a Lexus and you went to the Sydney, Australia Opera House, if you were like a subscriber or something like that, and you went to the Opera House, well, when you got there, Lexus had a valet parking for you that was just for Lexus owners, and then they had a reception area for Lexus owners. And Mercedes owners had to park themselves. So if you went to the opera and that was your world and you were a Lexus owner, you are now attached to Lexus because of that. And why would you ever get rid of a Lexus knowing that you were going to then go to the opera and you would not be parking in the Lexus parking lot? That's an attachment. Okay. And now a bad example of that, a poor example of that, but it's still attachment, are the airline frequent flyer the airline frequent prisoner programs, right? So like, for example, I am an American Airlines frequent prisoner because I'm going to be this week, I believe it's this week, I'm going to be pushing over, I think it's 6 million miles or something like that with them this week. So they own me, right? I'm attached to them. I'm attached at the hip to them because they own me. I hate them. I don't really particularly care for any of the airlines except for maybe Southwest Airlines or Virgin America or something like that, which are nice. They're nice. And I've had great times on Southwest, but American is just okay. That's all it is. It's just okay. So a customer attachment, like the Disney attachment that the customers have, that, when you're a kid, you're a Disney Mouseketeer. And now that when you get older, the way Disney gets attachment with their big fans is by creating a club called D23. And if you go to d23.com, you can see what that's all about. So those are organizations who take customer service to a totally different level, to where they are creating these clubs, so to speak, or they're creating an attachment to the people that is creating a service level far beyond than what they're going to get anywhere else. You could also think in terms of service as being something along the lines of the Ritz-Carlton hotels, where it's almost like a Cheers bar. You go to the bar. Maybe you have a local pub or a local hangout that you go to because everybody knows your name. You're emotionally attached to that. And so is there a way for Whole Foods to look at that? But probably the big one that I would say is, which would be like the third thing that I would say to them, is that, and this kind of follows the philosophy that I often teach, is look at what everybody else is doing and then don't do it. See, the knee-jerk reaction, and I think this has been a knee-jerk reaction. The knee-jerk reaction is that Whole Foods started losing market share. They started losing customers to cheaper prices. Okay. Well, the reason why they lost customers to cheaper prices was because there was no other difference between the stuff that they were selling and the stuff that Costco was selling. But think about another company that's similar to Whole Foods who has not done that. Starbucks, for example. Starbucks is the company that for how many years, when Starbucks first came out, they were the butt of comedian jokes and people, joking all the time about, I would never pay $5 for a cup of coffee or $6 for a cup of coffee or something like that. And I would never do that. And that's fine. The people who would never do that are not customers of Starbucks. But guess what? Starbucks, hugely, vastly, wildly successful. Now, guess what? All these other companies started realizing, the fast food places, and we'll use McDonald's as the example, is they started realizing they better serve better coffee because people think that Starbucks coffee is better. Now, I'm not arguing with you about whether it's better or not. I'm just saying people who go to Starbucks think that it is better. And the experience of Starbucks. And Starbucks, forced us to learn a new language in order to order our coffee. But McDonald's came out and they said, okay, the McCoffee or McCafe or whatever it was they call it. They said, oh, this is just as good. And their commercials, kind of do a little spanking of Starbucks by saying that, oh, you can have the coffee that's just as good, but a lot cheaper. So you see, if Starbucks had the same mentality as Whole Foods had, well, they would have a knee-jerk reaction of saying, well, we better start discounting our coffee, and we better start thinking about starting a new series of stores that are going to be discounted coffee to match these guys. But that's not what they did. In fact, that's exactly the opposite of what they did. So now Howard Schultz is going to be leaving Starbucks this April because he's going to be taking over another company that has been started by Starbucks called Starbucks Reserve, and they are now building stores across the United States that are called roasteries, the Starbucks Reserve roasteries, and they are now serving $10, $15 cups of coffee, and it becomes much more of an artisan experience, and they are betting that is going to be the next big thing for them with coffee. So in other words, they're doing exactly the opposite of what Whole Foods is doing. And see, in my opinion, that's what Whole Foods should have done. Is to go the exact opposite direction. You don't go fight the bear on the bear's turf, and you don't go fighting based on price, because price is almost always a losing battle. And so that is a giant, you're letting the competition dictate the rules. And that's the last thing you want to do. You want to dictate the rules of competition. So I think that Whole Foods, and is it easy? No. Is it guaranteed? Heck no, it's not guaranteed. Starbucks Reserve isn't guaranteed, but I give it a lot better chance than I would if they came out and they said, oh, we're going to have Starbucks discount, the Starbucks $1 coffee. I just don't see how that would have worked for them, because McDonald's is McDonald's. McDonald's is big. So that's my advice to Whole Foods. And for those of you, that are watching this, the main thing is to think about that. You don't allow yourself to be put in the same position as Whole Foods. If you're being successful, but you're being successful because of a product or a deliverable that ultimately can be copied, you have to start thinking about that right now. You need to practice healthy paranoia. Every single day you need to wake up and think about, okay, what do I do next to top this so that I can continue to separate myself from the crowd? This is Steve Miller, better known as Kelly's dad and marketing gunslinger. I appreciate you joining me today. And if you have not gotten my book, doggone it, get out there, buy my book this week, because especially this week, if you buy my book this week, both of us are going to win. Number one, you're going to win because I'm going to give you, there's some cool stuff you're going to get with it. Okay. If you buy my book, forward your confirmation to me at the email address below, and you're going to get a free webinar with me. You're going to get a free product with me, things like that are valued at like $300. And join me in this, and that way, and you guys win and I win too. All right. So again, thanks very much for joining me, and I'll be back again next week. In the meantime, always remember, be uncopyable.